Yeah, and Maria, since you opened the door, I'll tell you a couple of quick stories. So I've had a situation where I had a client that the first time I worked with him, he was really slow at getting back to me all the time, but it was an opportunity for me to get my foot in the door with something I hadn't done before, so I kept putting up with it and ended up helping the guy get a loan because of the business plan I put together, so everything turned out great, and then, it was taking forever to get paid, and I had to keep nagging him about that, and so then I got paid. So then some time went by, he came back to me for a second assignment, and that gut feel that she was talking about? I went, oh, that was so agonizing last time. But my ego got the best of me, and I thought, yes, but I know that I like this kind of work, and there's other reasons it's going to be good for me and all of that. And I took it on again. And let me tell you, I should have listened to my gut because it was a horrible experience. And he was 10 times worse the second time because I think he thought he could try to push me even farther.
Right.
And I uncovered some things about his business I was not happy about. No. And I ended up doing a lot of work and having to walk away from the assignment not getting paid, because the other part of this is depending on what business you're in, especially, first of all, if you're a freelancer or independent contractor and you're in a services business, it can sometimes be more grief to try to sue someone or go to a collection agency to get payment than it is to walk away. So that was a very important lesson I learned, and I really do try to listen to my gut. And then the second item is that sometimes you get asked to do things and your gut also tells you, I'm not really the expert on that the person thinks I am, and should I take this on, and maybe I can figure it out, and all of that. And if you can be really honest with yourself and that person, especially if it's someone you've done work before, that, I'm really not the best person for this. Let me help you find the best person. That actually works to your advantage, because that person will come back to you and refer you to other people because they know that you're not just in it for the money.
Right.
You're in it because you care about their business, and you're not going to do something that you're not qualified to do. So I think, and then the last point I'll make on that is what you were saying, Maria, about contracts and language in the contracts.
Right.
If I look back 5 years, the length of my agreements was dramatically shorter than they are now, because every time I have an experience, I learn from it, and I put some other clause in there. So
I know that agreements can be overpowering, and sometimes it's like, oh, but what I do want to say is that in your personal, or when you're an independent person, it's worse because you don't have this business protecting you. You don't have someone who's taking care of all these things for you. So you do need to have a certain formality around the things that you do without spending tons of money or anything. Even if it's a letter of agreement that makes sense as to what each party is going to do. But it makes it easier to then, when you have to have the difficult conversation, and if you outline things first and what is expected of each person, even in a project plan, I think it makes more sense than to be able to fix problems than what everything is unclarified. I trust you, you trust me, this is great, we're friends, or we know each other, or you were referred to me by so-and-so. It's better to define what you can do, what you can bring to the table, what they expect, sort of have an agreement to that, to what the price and the time frame is. Anyway, that's sort of what, yes.
So in that vein, do you recommend having a contract attorney?
Well, I'm not saying necessarily. Every person has to decide what makes sense for them. If I've done projects where I don't have a contract that I drafted, I don't have a contract that I drafted with an attorney, but I have had a definition of what I'm doing and what is expected and the time frame, what I'm going to do, what they will do, and the pricing, and that has made it easier. Maybe at some point I will have to have a very simple agreement. And many people do have agreements, and nowadays you can even find them online, You don't have to go to a lawyer and pay, $300 an hour, whatever it is. You can find the agreements online and use them, Yes?
Hi, my
Hi.
name is Drew, and I measure customer service. And I find that that helps me to brand who I am.
Yes.
Because all the jobs that I've had over the years, if you've been in the market for 10 to 20 years, your job defines you, and you get stuck in your little cubicle of life, okay, by the job titles they give you, which some of them are not too flattering.
Exactly.
So I think LinkedIn had a good thing of saying, please give me a testimony. Let me know what one or two things you feel are my strengths. And I have a collection now of testimonies. You know, and if you're a trainer, what did you like the best about what I've done for you? And some of those are really impactful insights that you may not have even known that you have that talent.
That's great.
So if you're bridging the old to the new,
That's great. Yeah.
any comments you have on that? Because, you know, you have expertise in maybe 20 areas, and you want to hone it down. You want to get the one plane that's going to land.
Right.
So
Well,
ideas?
yeah, you do want to look at all your expertise and where you are today, which is sort of, I'm talking about how I did it, and decided, well, I'm not doing product management anymore. That's not about what I am anymore. I'm not doing product development anymore. At least, I don't think writing a book is product development. I am more about taking my marketing and branding knowledge and trying to use that moving forward, and writing, and about writing. So I had to, you know, forget about some of the other things that I had done, and not necessarily put that down anymore as things that I will do in the future. So if, you know, I hope that makes sense or answers your question. Okay. So one more question before we go into self-publishing.
Hi, my question was about, have you seen instances of negative branding in terms of clients? For example, you have clients, and what I've seen a lot of times, one of the persons that I work with often is very, very knowledgeable about what they do, very well respected, but because they're so nice that they never charge everyone the full price. Everyone's always coming to them for the discounted version. And doing that for so long, people now don't respect financially the contribution that the person is making. Is it possible when something like that happens to you to be able to come back from negative branding?
Well, it is possible for that to happen. And actually, I knew someone who was a graphic designer, and I used her a lot when I was working in the corporation. And she was very talented, very creative, but she charged a very low fee. And that's part of the reason why I was using her, because it was saving our budget. But when the time came to get a better project, they passed her up because someone else charged more. And therefore, they were better. And I said to my boss, "You're crazy. What are you doing with our budget?" And she said, "These people are better. They have more experience. They charge more." And I lost that fight. And that person, and I talked to her and I said, "Look, you're doing yourself a disadvantage by doing this. You're my friend to a certain extent. I need to share with you my conversation with my manager so that you in the future change what you do." I don't think she changed very much, but I think she should have. You know, I mean, other person could say, let me take this feedback, and you know, maybe for certain, not necessarily for everybody you work with, you may want to charge less depending on who they are. But if you know certain clients can pay more and are more taken with a certain image and price structure, whatever, then charge them more. That's what I would have done, but anyway. Okay, then we'll move to the writing a book. And again, I do want to preface this by saying that what I'm sharing today is the information that I have learned while doing my book. I am not, obviously you know by now, I am not an agent. I am not, I do belong to Chicago Women in Publishing, but I joined because I was going to write the book. And I wanted to learn more about the publishing industry and more about writing and writers and that world, which was totally foreign to me. I had always written to a certain degree because of my job, but I had never actually done the book. And the idea came to me, and I just developed it. So it wasn't necessarily a book in marketing or advertising or branding. As I said, it was a memoir. It's called Cuban Stories. And since I was born in Cuba. And I've decided that I was going to do a lot of reading on how to do the publishing and the writing. And I enjoyed that. I had the time to do it. And one of the things, the first thing that I found was that you had to research the market. And I said, here we go again. You have to research the market. So you do, because you want to know who's been writing about what you're writing. And you may want to know if it's memoirs, what kinds of memoirs. Obviously, I'm not known. So people who are writing in an area that is similar to my area, who are they? How did they write their books? I read the books to see how they did it. And they always tell you in all the books that I read about writing, you need to know who studied the bestsellers, and you have to decide, are you going to go against the bestsellers? Well, I wasn't going to do that. Or are you going to complement the bestsellers? In my case, I decided I had a message. I knew what it was. I was going to work with it, and I was going to try to market it using my marketing knowledge. I wasn't about the bestseller or anything else. But for other people, it may be. Whether it's a novel that you're writing, or a cookbook, or a children's book, or something else. Know your competition. Then these are the other things that I read about and I found that I had to do. And in writing, you just work a lot because, for those of you who have written or are writers, you know that it's about writing and rewriting, and you go sick with all the times, and then you put it aside, and then you go back, and then you realize, oh my God, I have to redo this. I didn't do photos and illustrations, but if you do, you have to get good quality ones. Then they do tell you get feedback, and I did. So you don't give a friend of yours the whole book, or a relative, because they're gonna, okay, like I have to read this. But you do give some, especially a relative. But you do give them a chapter or 2 chapters, and then people will read it, and they will actually come back and give you their thoughts. Don't ignore the thoughts. Take them, analyze them, and try to see if you should use some of what they said or not. I also think that, I don't say it here, I say it in another page, but one person told me, oh, you should write a blog about your book. And I said, I don't have a blog. Well, you have to do one. I said, okay, all right. So I created a blog. It didn't cost me anything because, you can do them at any cost. So I learned how to do that. And I gave myself the name of the book, Cuban Stories, and I had my photo, and I started writing chapters, sections of the book. And I got a lot of comments from people. And people who had lived in Miami or who had visited Cuba, then I talked about a chapter in food, and I didn't put recipes, as I said. They asked me about recipes, so I had to get the recipes and put the recipes on the blog. So it was fun. I mean, I'm not saying it sells your book, but it validates your idea.